It is 12:35 and 84 degrees at your hometown station, 1430 WBEV. Now with today's edition of Community Comment, here is Craig Warmbold.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome to Community Comment. On today's program, we wrap up the second of a two-part series looking at the contested race for Dodge County Sheriff. It is a partisan race that is appearing on the August ballot, and that will determine who proceeds to the November ballot. There is no Democratic candidate on the November ballot, so barring a successful write-in campaign, this is going to be a very decisive election come August 9th. On yesterday's program, we had an opportunity to sit down with the challenger in this race, Mark Kolker. On today's program, we have an opportunity to speak with the incumbent, Sheriff Dale Schmidt. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir.
Always a pleasure to be here. I'm glad to be back. It's been a little bit of a hiatus, but I love being here to talk to the community.
Well, let's begin, as we often do in these election one-on-ones, with the opening statements, which is, biographical information. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, family life, volunteerism, anything that you want to tell the people of Dodge County.
Well, thanks for that opportunity. Thank you, everybody out there, for tuning in and for paying attention to what's going on in your community. As you know, elections are very important. It's very important to know who you're voting for when you go to those polls on August 9th. First of all, I like to start out with the center of everything that we do, my family does, is centered around our faith. We are, by we I mean my wife and the children, are members at St. John's in Juneau. My children attend school there at St. John's in Juneau. We've been going to St. John's since a little bit before my wife and I have been married, but certainly we're all lifelong Christians. I certainly also involved in other things at church, including the softball team, which I run our church softball team and our traveling league. I serve as the commissioner, and I'm honored to do that. Married to my wife, Cassandra, and she and I, like I said, have been married for 11 years, and I am blessed. And those who know me and my wife know I am blessed. She is fantastic. She's beautiful and intelligent, has her own business here in town, Modern Women of America. And we have two beautiful children, Caitlin and Colin, age 6 and 8, and they are, they're a lot of fun, and we're trying to bring them up in a positive way and in our community, being involved in the community, and we're very proud of both of them. A little bit about my background. I was born in Beaver Dam. I was raised in Waupun. My parents, Jeff and Gloria Schmidt, still live in Waupun. My grandparents, Ed and Shirley Krause, from rural Beaver Dam. My other grandparents, Arlo and Marge Schmidt, also of Beaver Dam. That's where we're from. That's where our family is from. And happy to be here serving in my home community from where I was born. Certainly went on to school, went to WLA, Winnipeg Lutheran Academy in Fond du Lac, and graduated from WLA in 1997. Attended Fox Valley Technical College after a short stint at UW Fond du Lac, where I graduated in 2001. I've been a law enforcement officer for 22 years. Worked in the village of Winneconne, the town of Winneconne, Fond du Lac County Sheriff's Office, Horicon Police Department, Greene County Sheriff's Office. Ended up here at home at the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, where I've been for 18 years. I am a drug recognition expert and have been for 12 years. A drug recognition expert is an individual who's highly trained in detection of drugs, specifically in impaired drivers, but anyone, and honored to have been sent to that school. Most difficult class I've ever been to, and never want to do it again, but it was great. I'm very glad I have that. Also, as a part of that, I'm a standardized field sobriety test instructor, have been for 11 years. As a result of those, I've been able to teach. I've been able to teach at State Patrol Academy. I've been able to teach at Fox Valley Technical College, where I went to school, and I've been doing that for a number of years. Also, internal agency instruction. I'm actually a master instructor in field sobriety tests, which means I get to teach the instructors on how to be instructors, which is really neat. I could talk all day about all the trainings that I've gone through, but if you'd really like to know about all my trainings, I have a 24-page curriculum vitae on my website, sheriffdaleschmidt.com, that you can go to. You can download that, and you can read all of the different trainings and things that I've been involved with. I'm a lifelong Republican, and currently a member of the Republican Party. My friend Ron Bishop, the mayor in Waupun, and I, when we were kids, we were running around as Republicans, and that's really a basis for a lot of the things that I do, but not everything. I have the support of the vast majority of my staff. That's important. And I'm honored to have that support. I had overwhelming support here in the last week, up to and after the debate. It's been incredible. And I've never had a group of more productive team members that work together than we have right now. It is incredible. In 22 years, I've never seen that. I have endorsements, both publicly and privately. There's some difficulty in politics for police chiefs to really come out during an election, the Hatch Act, some other things. They don't want to get involved in those things. But privately, the vast majority of our police chiefs here in Dodge County support me. And it's shown because they've elected me to be their vice president of the Chiefs Association and the vice chair of our Drug Task Force Board of Directors, unanimously. And I'm also supported by 38 of our other Wisconsin sheriffs. There again, they've elected me to not only be the second vice president of the Badger State Sheriff's Association, I'm currently the first vice president, and I'm scheduled, if you'll have me as your sheriff again, to be the president come January for a 2-year term. Again, elected by my peers to do that. I've been endorsed by all 7 of our local representatives here in Dodge County, the senators and the representatives. All 7 of them have endorsed me. Also, Congressman Glenn Grothman, Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish, several of our county board supervisors and former supervisors, retired police chiefs from Waupun, whom I've worked with and grown up with, Dale Haringa, Tom Wincher, both of them support me. I've been in a number of professional organizations, and I could talk all day about that, but I don't want to bore you. But some great organizations I've been part of other than what I've listed already. Community involvement. You've seen me in the community, I'm sure. You've seen me out there in Beaver Dam Rotary. I am the chair of the Rotary Club Service Projects. I also take care of Rotary Lights. 5 years of Rotary Lights down at Swan Park, hundreds of hours put in out there between me and we'll call them our elves, setting up the Christmas decorations. It's great. And also, you'll see me out at the Dodge County Fair at the food stand, selling food every year, donating time. Involved the Shop with Cops. Last night, we had our first ever summer edition Shop with Cops, where we took kids to Walmart and shopped for school supplies. There weren't enough kids, so I let the other officers take those kids out. We were able to hang out in the parking lot, say hi to a lot of really good people, but those kids, they loved it. And not only they get their school supplies, but they got shoes and other things too. I organize the delivery of Elks baskets around the county for the Elks Club each year. Formed the Law Enforcement Explorer Post in 2008. I'm the reigning cream puff eating contest champion out at the Dodge County Fair. Also, apple pepper pie eating contest out at the great event hosted by my friend Diana Ogle. I was part of the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation. So many other things. I could sit here and list them all day. Not just me, my family is too. My wife's on the chamber board. She's an ambassador. She's on the advisory committee for the Community Foundation. So many other things. Last thing I want to touch on is some of the law enforcement experience that I have that's very, very important in a candidacy for sheriff. This is important. These are things that you need to take note of some of the experience. You cannot replace experience. And I will tell you that I'm the only candidate here with more than 2 years of experience, of actual law enforcement experience out on the road, being out there and investigating crimes. And as part of that, I've had some major criminal investigations that I've either investigated myself or directly supervised. Some of those include 2 major homicide investigations, one of them ending up in a first-degree intentional homicide conviction because of a plea bargain. Nobody plea bargains for a first-degree intentional homicide. A lot of credit to my detectives for putting a great case together. I was part of that, supervised that. And 2 officer-involved shootings. One involved one of my own deputies who was involved in a shooting. One involved a Beaver Dam officer. We investigated and were part of both of those. Sexual assault investigations, human trafficking. We shut down 2 strip clubs here in Dodge County, 2 of them, because of human trafficking, violence against women, drugs, just nasty stuff, prostitution. You may remember me walking in full uniform and catching prostitution in the act in one of these establishments. We shut down 2 of them. We've got federal indictments on the owners. Crimes against children. We've had over 40 crimes against children cases that have been investigated by our detectives, and I've been supervising those. Major missing in persons investigations. Take a look at the 3 young men who were lost in the mine over in Nita several years ago. That is an experience that I will never forget. I'll be able to draw on as your sheriff, that I'm the only candidate that has those types of experiences. OWIs, as I said, I'm an instructor. I've had 600-700 OWI arrests minimum through my career. Unfortunately, more fatal crashes than I can remember. But knowing how to investigate those, knowing how that process works, making sure that we do things the right way for those families is very important. Drug cases, major heroin, major methamphetamine cases that we've worked on through the years, those are experiences that you just cannot pick up as you go. You have to have worked it, lived it, and I'm the only candidate here that has had those experiences more than a frontline showing up and taking an initial report type of investigation. And so that's a little bit of my background. I could go on, but there's a lot of other topics we want to talk about.
Why did you decide to run again for Dodge County Sheriff?
Well, really, there's 3 main points of why I want to run for sheriff, and it's part of everything you hear about me. It's protecting the lives, property, and constitutional rights of our citizens. That's in our mission statement. Those are the three most important things that we do. What do we do to protect your lives? Well, I can tell you, crash investigations have been troublesome for me because of the impact that it has not only on families, which is the most impact, but first responders, other drivers out on the highways. You are uprooting people's lives when these things happen. And I go back and I think back to a crash, the one that really hit me the most, the first time that really hit me the most, responding to a crash out on Highway 68. A vehicle crosses over the center line and strikes the semi head-on. The vehicle engine is thrown from that car about 200 yards from where the car was. You've got a gentleman, their family coming back from a vacation, and you see he's not going to make it, or he hasn't made it. I'm the first one there with another officer. You've got his wife, who is in horrible condition in the passenger seat, and you've got 2 young children in the back seat, and wife and children just lost their father. Or you go to another crash where a 8-year-old, 9-year-old gets hit by a vehicle crossing the road, and you look at what impact that has on the family as you're watching mom as first responders are trying to save his life. Or you respond to an incident where you've got a 3-year-old that's laying lifeless on a counter, and we're looking around like, how did this happen? Those types of things stay with you forever. And those are the types of things that I want to be there to make sure that we do the best job that we can, to make sure our investigators are doing exactly what they need to be doing to investigate it properly. If somebody needs to be held accountable, they're held accountable. If we need to take care of the family, we're taking care of the family. Those are the things that we want to do. That's why I want to be part of this. That's lives. Property, thefts, burglaries, property crimes. In Dodge County, over the last 5-6 years, you hear a lot about statistics about, well, you might be below the national average on burglaries and thefts. Well, let me tell you, first of all, the number of burglaries and thefts in Dodge County that the Dodge County Sheriff's Office is responsible for handling is down significantly, down like 20 or 30 per year in the burglary category over the last several years. Thefts down, several. I mean, it's cut in half, if not more. We might only have one. Robberies, not thefts. We in the early 16, 17 time frame, we had several of them. Over the last couple of years, one. So when you're looking at statistics, if we solve a bunch of robberies, and we have a bunch of robberies, then our stats are going to reflect that. But when you only have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of those incidents and you solve 1, well, that's 33%. You solve 2, it's 66%. We don't have a lot of crime when you're looking at those statistics, and those statistics can be skewed so heavily. But that's what we want to do. We want to reduce the number in the first place so we don't have to investigate them on the back end. That's what we've been doing. We've been successful at that. Constitutional rights. I will protect your right to bear arms, own and bear arms. I will protect your right to assembly. I will protect your freedom of speech as long as you're not breaking the law in doing so. I am going to protect those constitutional rights, and that's what all of our staff are doing. That's my job. That's why I'm doing this job. It's not for my own personal gain. It's for my family, my friends, and my community's gain that we're doing this. That's the reason why I'm doing this job, for those three things: protecting lives, property, and constitutional rights. This garbage about it being all about politics and all about me, no, it's not about me. It's about making sure that when my 6 and 8-year-old child grow up, they grow up in a community that we can be safe in, and that they can feel safe in, and that we have a great place to live, work, and visit.
So you've covered quite a few different areas and reasons why you've decided to run again. Let's zero in on some of those issues, some of which you may have touched upon, others which you may not have. The issues that drive you to come to work every day, not only come to work every day, but to seek this another term here as Dodge County Sheriff. Elaborate on some more of those issues, if you would.
I love my job. I'll say that first of all. I love doing what I do. I love being involved with the community. I love being able to go out and not just do those things that we talked about, investigating crime, but I also like being involved with the community. And that's part of the piece of being sheriff that some people forget about. You can't just avoid all of the breakfasts and the community events and all the other things and just focus on what's going on in the office. That's very important to me, and I don't want to forget about that piece. There are other issues of why I'm running, and that's because of the leadership and the integrity that we have within the sheriff's office. We have built a culture of accountability and integrity within our agency. And I don't want to besmirch anybody in the past, but what I can tell you is we put the right people in the right places, and we hold people accountable, and we have a fantastic staff that have come in. We have built leaders by training them, and we send them all through a program called Leadership in Police Organizations. All of our supervisors get that training so that we're all on the same page, on that same sheet of music when we're working through issues. All of these other things that we do are not possible without great leadership. And I will tell you that I am blessed to have all the leaders that I have in those positions. Accountability is important, however. And while we're talking about some of the issues here, especially specifically about accountability, I do have to take a moment and talk a little bit about my opponent, which I don't want to do a lot of, but I do have to make some information available to you. And this information I'm going to give you is available on my website, sheriffdaleschmidt.com, also on my Facebook page. I posted it before I came in here today. There's some serious accountability issues regarding my opponent. And I put out some information about a couple weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago here, about that. But I just received the rest of it Wednesday. Didn't have time before the debate to really look at it, but there's a lot of information that needs to be unpacked and shared with the public. And I encourage you to go to my website, but I'm going to try and go through some of that with you here today. Wednesday, I received a packet, the disciplinary file of my opponent. There it is. It is about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, 200 pages of files from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office. Reason I bring this up is back in 2020, my opponent applied to work at the Sheriff's Office as a deputy. I stayed out of that background investigation altogether because he and his wife rented from me. Wouldn't have looked good for me to be part of that background and make that decision. I left that to my chief deputy and to my captain. They told me afterwards that they rejected his application. Why? Because he didn't provide information and because they were finding information that seemed to be deceptive. They put it away, they put the file away, they said you're not moving forward in the process. Earlier in the year, I was looking at the file. I looked at the file and saw that we've got some pretty serious issues here. It wasn't just that he wasn't really being honest with everything. He was being outright deceptive and lying. And as I talked with the chief deputy, I said, you need to talk to the district attorney, and you need to do something separate of me to make a decision on how this is going to be handled. The decision was made that we have to release this information to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office so that they can make a decision. As part of that investigation, a letter was sent by my chief deputy to Winnebago County, laying out exactly what we had in our investigation. Eventually, the chief deputy of the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office came to Dodge County and went in and looked at, prior to that, he went and looked at his own application file, Mark Kolker's employment file, and that he filed in 2003. And I know that's old, but we'll get updated stuff here soon. But on that employment file, he said, on the application, Kolker was asked if he ever been warned or disciplined for any of the following conditions in his previous or current employment. And one of those was he checked the box no for categories of performance problems or inability to get along with others. When asked if he ever been suspended or discharged from any position, he checked the box no. That, my friends, is a lie. He went on. Recently, Kolker was selected to transfer to a patrol deputy position effective November 1st of 2021, last year. As part of that process, he completed the abbreviated employment application. However, he also submitted the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office personnel history form, which is detailed and comprehensive. Were you ever discharged or asked to resign from any place of employment? Kolker checked the box no. Have you ever been subjected to disciplinary action in connection with any employment? He said yes, with one written warning. Down below that, he talked about places he had been employed and hired at. In 2000, he was employed by the City of Waupun Police Department. Hired/resigned. That's what Kolker wrote. That's not true. He did not resign. He was terminated, and I have the letter of that. 2020, the Dodge County Sheriff's Office. He puts on here, he turned down an offer for employment. He was wiped from the background process. We didn't give him an offer. There was no offer, but he told his employer he turned down an offer for employment. The packet goes on. There's an interview conducted between my background investigator and Winnebago County got this, and they asked him, very first question, what is the definition of willful omission? Mark said, not to leave out anything intentionally. He knew what willful omission was. He was asked, if he intentionally left anything off his application or background, he said no. If you've ever been told or asked to leave a job, Mark said no. Been asked if he'd been terminated from any job. Mark said no. He asked if he'd ever been suspended, verbally reprimanded, issued a written reprimand, demoted, counseled, coached by a former or present employer. Mark states no. He asked if a supervisor from any prior employment will say it was the reason he left or was disciplined. Mark said there are no problems, nothing. Continues to deny, continues to deny. We move on. There's a conversation with a police chief, Tom Wincher, former police chief. Police chief said that there was video evidence that showed Kolker was bouncing a kid off the walls back and forth in a officer abuse of force incident in 2002. Chief Wincher called that person into a meeting with the deputy chief and the lieutenant and confronted Kolker regarding that incident. Kolker again denied any wrongdoing. Chief informed him that he had a video of the incident. Kolker remained silent. The chief told him he was done. Kolker got up, took his uniform shirt off, walked out of the conference room, and left. The chief went on to say that he believed there was a $30,000 settlement to the victim of this, which I can't find confirmation of it, but I certainly have an offer from the city that I have documentation of. I go on, and I'm sorry this is lengthy, but it's important. I have a final summary from the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office internal investigation 22 INT 010. That internal investigation has revealed, this is from the Chief Deputy of Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, this summer. Kolker's deception and efforts to conceal his involvement in his use of force incident and subsequent termination has permeated his career in law enforcement since his departure from the Waupun Police Department in 2002. When applying for employment with the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office in 2003, Kolker falsified his employment application and lied to the background investigator regarding the circumstances of his departure from Waupun PD. He has also failed to disclose the information when applying for a patrol deputy position with the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office in 2021 and withheld his information during the hiring interview selection process. Similarly, in 2020, Kolker falsified his employment application
from
when
the
applying
Metalcraft studio
for a patrol deputy position with the Dodge County Sheriff's Office. He lied to the background investigation when specifically questioned regarding the circumstances of departure. When interviewed by Chief Deputy Christofferson as part of the internal investigation this year, Kolker professed that he had never lied or intentionally failed to disclose information and has always been an open book. However, the Chief Deputy says, the uncovering of his involvement in the excessive use of force complaint revealed that he lied with conviction during the interview and deliberately withheld information when specifically and narrowly questioned regarding the circumstances surrounding his departure from Waupun PD. Based on the evidence and information gathered, the allegations are sustained across several accounts that Deputy Mark Kolker violated the rules of conduct, false reports, and truthfulness. And I have one other document that I need to share from the district attorney in Winnebago County. He issued a letter placing him on the Brady Giglio list, which does not mean your career as a law enforcement officer is over. However, it has to be disclosed to court, and I will tell you that this is serious. This would cause problems if he ever had to testify in court. It appears to be uncontroverted that Kolker did not mention in 2002 investigation in his interviews with Winnebago County or Dodge County Sheriff's Office. He did not acknowledge the investigation in his recent interview with Winnebago County Sheriff's Office conducted in 2022 as a result of the Sheriff's Office allegations. This appears to be a conscious decision to omit important information, and Kolker may have believed it would not have come to light because of a non-disclosure agreement. It does not seem realistic that Kolker would have left Waupun Police Department with the impression that his departure was in good terms and that he would not need to mention the investigation when asked about it and the problems at the Waupun Police Department. The conclusion that Kolker was untruthful in the investigation is a reasonable one from the district attorney. Mr. Kolker has been demoted in Winnebago County. He is no longer a law enforcement officer. Mr. Kolker is a civilian booking clerk. There's a reason for that, and that's because Winnebago County has deemed that he is no longer eligible to be a law enforcement officer. How can somebody who has that from his own employer, who has lied to the Waupun Police Department, to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office, to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, and to multiple others, including the public, as he said it many times, that person is not qualified to be sheriff, let alone law enforcement officer. And everything that you've been hearing from him in the debates online has been questionable at best. Doesn't have documents. This isn't my words. These are the words of investigators that are from a third party. He's been throwing a lot of stuff out there that you just can't believe because he's really good at lying. And I'd ask you to take note of that when you're listening to any of the things that he's bringing forward.
You're listening to the Community Comment Program here on AM 1430 WBEV Beaver Dam, a Good Karma Brands radio station. Our guest, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt, the incumbent in the race for Dodge County Sheriff. You've outlined a number of accusations against your opponent here just now, some of which has been brought to the attention of the media. We're in the process of doing our due diligence and attempting to independently verify that. We have submitted open records requests for many of the things that you're talking about, if not all of them. So while I cannot independently verify any of it, certainly it is your accusation to make. So let me ask you this question then, as perhaps devil's advocate in light of some of these statements that you're making. Law enforcement officials are frequently allowed to have a disciplinary case or something along those lines conclude with a non-disclosure agreement, which, as I understand, would allow them to not have to disclose this type of information to an organization, to an entity that they would be applying for. Would it not be the case in some of these matters that there would have been a non-disclosure agreement in place that would have allowed him to not have to answer these questions in the employment process?
Well, what I would tell you in response to that is a couple things. First of all, if any employee ever applies for my agency and it comes to my knowledge that they have a non-disclosure agreement in place, I will not hire them unless they release that information to me. And that's standard practice. In addition, Act 82 this last fall just came out that said no agency may enter into a new non-disclosure agreement for a law enforcement officer for this very reason. We have to hold our law enforcement officers to the highest standard that needs to be publicized so we don't have people who are jumping just like this from one agency to another in that new agency not knowing about what happened. It's state law now. Now that doesn't go back retroactive, but what he was trying to do was subvert the open records law, which I did have to have a judge rule on that. The judge ruled that no, that is subject to open records, and the judge released that information. There was a non-disclosure agreement in place. But I guarantee you, if the Winnebago County Sheriff's Office would have known anything about any of this at the time of their background investigation, they would have done exactly as I had done, and they would have not hired him had he not released that information to them so that they could analyze it. You want somebody who's working for you who is open and honest and will acknowledge, I've made mistakes. I'll openly admit I've made mistakes. It happens. But you have to acknowledge it, admit it, and move on. And sometimes it takes a while to move past some of those things. But if you're going to deny it, and even go so far as to deny it in a public election when people are asking you about it, as it has been going on in social media right now, which I have documentation of, that's not acceptable. You have to be open and honest. That's the epitome of integrity and accountability. And if you yourself are not going to hold yourself accountable and acknowledge your mistakes when asked, and you're going to lie about it, that's a real problem in my opinion.
What mistakes have you made?
I've made several. I've as a supervisor, we've had interactions where I didn't put a stop to some of those interactions, and I should have, and I've acknowledged that. I've had some motor vehicle incidents. I've had, There's some things that are out there that people may think I've done wrong, but been acquitted of some of those things. One that I always tell my staff, every time I have a new orientation, I bring them in, I tell them about one of the first letters of reprimand I received, because I didn't appropriately go through a vehicle, and I didn't. We put a vehicle in impound, and there was a .40 caliber pistol in that glove box. It got rusty. The captain went out there, found it with the dad, and when I tell all my employees is, the captain, who I had an immense amount of respect for, called me and I was scared. You want a union rep? No. What did I do? Tell me. And I explained to him that, Captain, I missed it. I messed up. You know I do better work than that. My lieutenant at the time told me that he was looking for suspension for days off. But I came in, I took responsibility of it. And the captain said, a letter of reprimand is all you get. And that's in my file till today. That's what it's all about, taking accountability when you make a mistake. Yes, I did it. I apologize. I shouldn't have done that. But when you hide it, that's when you have a problem.
The appeals court's looking at a civil lawsuit that was filed against a individual from Beaver Dam who says he was unfairly detained in the Dodge County Jail under your direction. Again, I know it's an active court case, which limits the amount of things that you could say to it, but I imagine your opponent brought it up at the debate on Wednesday, so perhaps it would be appropriate in this venue to ask you your defense of that or your thoughts on that situation.
And I've spoken with the attorneys. They've allowed me to say a small amount here. First, let me preface this with any elected official or representative of the county that would openly talk about active litigation is putting the county in a really bad spot. The taxpayers in a really bad spot, because now they become subject to potentially being deposed and a agent of the county. So I got to be real careful that I don't do that. However, some other have. We got to be real careful about that. But I will tell you that we talked about this before. There was a case that was brought. It was dismissed. It was dismissed, and you have the press releases. I put them out there, and it was rambling. It didn't make any sense. They didn't follow any of the dates, but we didn't do anything wrong. And in a lawsuit, you can say whatever you want to. You can put anything you want in an affidavit. Doesn't mean it's actually true and accurate. It's an accusation, and now it's up for appeal. And again, they haven't followed the dates. They haven't followed the times. But it's going to take a while before the appeals court makes a decision. But I will tell you that our staff did nothing wrong. The DA did nothing wrong. My investigators, all they did was investigate. And there was an active detainer of which I worked with another law enforcement agency. And that law enforcement agency took the individual into custody. We did nothing wrong. And I stand by that statement. And the accusations that are being thrown out there are, one, inappropriate because of how it's coming out, and two, are just false. There is no story there. This is politics, and it's funny how every time I come up for election, all of a sudden this becomes an issue. It's an election issue. That's all this is, and that's all.
You feel this race has gotten too ugly, that it's no longer civil?
I certainly feel that While I was doing my homework, trying to get documentation of things I knew of, there's been a lot of slanderous things that have been thrown at me. For example, the other night, have you ever been in a subject of a criminal investigation? No, I haven't. Has somebody reviewed something to see if a crime happened? Yes. Did a crime happen? No. And in fact, the investigator that talked to me about it when he was done, I don't even know why I'm investigating this. The prosecutor's office, it was basically, are you kidding me? And it was brought because there was a complaint made. The police chief that received the complaint wanted to make sure in an election year that there was nothing there. He wanted to make sure that it was all taken care of. So he asked an outside agency, the West Bend Police Department, to look at it, which I would have done the same thing. The West Bend Police Department looks at it, does an investigation, finds out that, oh, sheriff, you actually have an internal investigation on this for an individual who was insubordinate. That makes sense. Who gave him that information? He did a report. He sent it to the DA to cover his end of it to make sure there's no crimes. The DA said, no, there's no crime here. And it's done. It was not a criminal investigation. It was a review. That was all it was. I've never been a subject of a criminal investigation. But those are the types of things, again, I've shown you here in the paperwork, the deception and the lies that come from my opponent. Everything you're hearing is the same thing.
We are speaking with Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. He is the incumbent in the partisan race for Dodge County Sheriff, appearing on the August 9th ballot alongside his challenger, Mark Kulker, who was our guest on yesterday's program. Both individuals participated in a debate on Wednesday at the Beaver Dam Veterans Center. You'll be able to find that video at dailydodge.com, or you'll also be able to find our video and our conversations with both of these candidates, dailydodge.com. We do have to take a break. In fact, we're overdue for that break. We'll be back here in just a few minutes.
It is 1:16. We now continue with community comment.
And our guest is Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. He is the incumbent in the Republican race for Dodge County Sheriff. It's going to be on the August 9th ballot, with the winner advancing to the November election, where there is currently no candidates in other parties listed on that ballot. We are video streaming today's program as we did yesterday's program with his opponent and the debate from Wednesday evening. If you're listening on the radio right now, you can go to dailydodge.com and you could watch today's interview. You can listen to it, and after this program, you'll be able to find both of those one-on-one interviews at that location. During the debate, we've heard a lot about staffing challenges. There's been staffing challenges pretty much in every sector of the economy. The accusation has been made that there's been a high amount of turnover and also not a release of open records requests that have been made to your department regarding those, including a complete turnover in the last few years in the patrol division. Could you give us your perspective on the staffing situation at the Dodge County Sheriff's Department?
Well, sure. We can talk about the open records first. First of all, the open records request. These are 6 of the 12 requests that have been made from our agency. Were filed, I believe it was on the 7th of July, just a week and a half ago. We've been working on some of those things, and I believe they're being released today, if I'm not mistaken. But we certainly have been communicating with him, trying to clarify, working with our corp counsel on some of the things, because there were some questions regarding some of the information that he was requesting, and so we are sending that out. But it hasn't been a month like was accused of, and even so, if we needed to work through that legally, sometimes those things happen. It took me 3 months to get information from Waupun PD, or over a month to get the stuff from Winnebago County. Those things take some time to make sure we get the accurate information out. But regarding complete turnover, that is just a farce. I think my day shift patrol and several of my second and third shift deputy sergeants would refute that, because they've been here for a very long time. We have a lot of long-time people still in the sheriff's office. Do we have a lot of new people? We certainly do. You may be aware that 2021 was the Great Resignation. And across our country, you know that. You were just resigned to that. But over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of turnover. When I took office, I was told, Sheriff, in 2018 and 2019, you're going to have a huge turnover because we're going to have a lot of retirements. What are you going to do about that? I said, we're going to deal with it when we get there. Sure, we did our best to try and make sure we kept people around as long as we could, but people need to be able to retire. You can't just say, oh, well, you've been here, you put in your time, and you're not allowed to retire anymore. Some people do hang on a little bit longer, but when they get to retirement, they want to enjoy their retirement. I remember Captain Frost, before he retired, saying, I don't want to get to that age where all of a sudden I have a heart attack and I haven't been able to enjoy retirement. So we've had a lot of people. We had 14 people retire last year, 14 of them. And that's across the agency, not just in patrol. That's in the jail, that's in detectives, that's in patrol. That's across the agency. There were 14 of them. So yes, we have had resignations. But when I hear things like we're not able to retain employees, well, that's just not true at all. Yes, we've had turnover. We've got almost 200 employees. You're going to have people come and go, part-timers come and go. And we've had individuals who worked in the jail. They've wanted to work in patrol, haven't been able to make it to patrol in our agency, but they were able to find another agency that worked out for them. Have we had some people that haven't liked the culture change? Sure. We've made a culture change of accountability, and some people aren't comfortable with that. But that isn't an overarching reason of why we've had a lot of people leave. There's a lot of different reasons, and that's across all different public and private sectors. I go back and I recall talking with my opponent's current sheriff, who had to close down a pod in Winnebago County because they didn't have enough employees. They closed down a pod and stopped contracting because they couldn't recruit enough people to keep that jail open. Fond du Lac County Sheriff, Waukesha, I mean, they're taking up all the spots at the academies because they've got to hire so many people. This is a issue across our country, and wages are going up like you wouldn't believe, and we're not able to keep pace. There's a lot of different reasons for that. But some of this, the employees aren't happy. I want to address that with a couple of comments. Here's one email, and this one is probably my favorite email, and I'm not soliciting any of this information. These are emails that I've just received. I'm not going to give out the names of the employees, but I'm going to read this one especially. I'm not usually the type of person to comment on something like this, but I feel it is needed. There have been a lot of disrespectful shots taken at you and our staff in the past few months, and none of it has been justified. The post made yesterday was a sad attempt at publicly smearing the reputation of 4 well-respected law enforcement professionals. So to see you immediately take a statement backing them and showing your support makes me proud to work for you and this agency. In the few years I've been here, I've gotten to know the group of people you have brought together here and could not be prouder to be among them. The people I have worked with here are some of the best people I have ever known and believe that speaks to your quality as a leader. Knowing that we have a leader that would have our backs, even in the current climate surrounding our profession, is reassuring and exactly the type of leader I look to follow. I have seen the other side make several attempts about your staff not being happy here, and I won't speak for anyone else. But I can assure you that from my perspective, that is not the case at all. I've heard many comments from others saying that if you weren't the sheriff, they would likely move on to another agency. My point being, as you have shown us all many times that you have our backs, we all have yours. Another one, the culture here at the sheriff's office has been so positive and welcoming. I knew coming on board was going to feel very close to home. I continue to be impressed with how positive and welcoming so many people are from different divisions. The attitude starts at the top, and you have accomplished an exceptional workplace attitude and culture. I met Sheriff Dale Schmidt while volunteering at Fox Valley Technical College multiple times after having conversations with him that I could tell he was a good leader and who cared about his employees. After meeting Sheriff Schmidt and talking to friends that worked for the sheriff's office, I decided to apply. It sounded like an agency I would fit in, and at the same time, I thought it would be a great honor to move back home and serve and protect the community I grew up in. After working for the Dodge County Sheriff's Office for almost 3 years, I can honestly say Sheriff Schmidt is an excellent leader who leads by example. He wears a uniform, makes traffic stops, responds to calls, etc. Many law enforcement leaders do not do any of those things. It's very respectable to work for a leader who comes out and does the same thing they expect from their employees. Everyone gets along and is dedicated to making Dodge County a better and safer community. And the last one, this one's from my secretary. The sheriff's office is the best it has been in a long time. There is integrity in all we do daily, and accountability is required of all. Sheriff Schmidt expects no less than top-notch service from the county from each and every one of us. He is kind and patient and lends an open ear to anyone that needs it. Those are 4 employees that come from various parts of the agency. They're happy working there, and the vast majority are. There were a number of employees at that debate the other night that were very happy to be there supporting me, very upset by the things that were said about some of them. We have an excellent work culture. And people want to come and work for us. And one last thing I wanted to share, Captain Enright shared this with me recently. Since 2018, we have hired a number of people. Just about every person that we have hired came to us from an outside agency. It wasn't somebody who knew that we trained. They came from Michigan, from Columbus, from Omro, from Dane County. We had a number come from the Dane County Sheriff's Office to come work for us. Ripon, Berlin, Sauk County, Columbus, and only a couple have left. One left because he moved to Iowa. And some of those life-changing things happen. It's been very, very positive at the agency, and anything to say otherwise, I'll refer you back to the first segment when we talked about the misinformation coming from somebody who has been deemed by his own agency as to not be truthful. And we need to move on from that, and I think we're in a really good spot. We are not, I'll finish with this, we are not in an employment crisis at the Sheriff's Office.
Give us some insight into, and statistics, if you can, into the number of drug cases that have been closed by the Dodge County Sheriff's Department in recent years.
So about 4-ish years ago, the police departments came together and revamped what we have for the drug task force. And the reason we did that was we had some work to do. And I will tell you that it was a fantastic collaborative effort between the police chiefs. And what we did was we formed a board of directors. Now, the drug task force has been in place for about 40 years. That was started by one of our detectives, a couple of our detectives, really working a lot of stuff in the jail. About 4 years ago, we did a really good job of bringing all the chiefs together and revamping what we had and creating an excellent drug task force. Through those 4 years, our statistics have quadrupled about the number of cases that we have investigated around Dodge County. One of our detectives came to me this morning and said to me, you know, what we do is different than other surrounding agencies. We put a lot of time into drug overdose incidents. I asked him, what do you mean? He said, other agencies don't spend the amount of time investigating where these drugs come from, what we call a Len bias homicide type investigation. We really do that. We do a lot of that. He said, I've recently spent a lot more time with the drug unit, and they've been so collaborative on a lot of the incidents they've been working on. He said they spend so much time investigating these cases and getting closure for these individuals who have lost loved ones as a result of these overdoses. And we work really hard to do that. Our numbers have quadrupled in the last 4 years because of that. What's going on? Because I'm the vice chair of the drug enforcement unit. We just had a meeting a couple weeks ago with the chiefs involved. We talked about providing some information to the public on what the drug unit actually does. And Chief Ryan Tollner of Mayville PD said, I'm going to put together something, and we're going to send out a press release, and you're going to get a preview of it. It's going to come out next week, but you're going to get a preview of one of the sections of this here today. Chief Tollner says, in all of the years the Drug Task Force has been in operation, we have never seen the collaboration and teamwork which our agencies currently have with each other. Our agencies are successfully investigating not only drug delivery to take illicit drugs off the street, but they are investigating drug overdoses to hold accountable those who provide illicit drugs to overdose victims. Our staff are working hard on these. They are making good arrests. Are we able to publicize all of these? No. Let me explain to you why we can't publicize these arrests. When we arrest somebody for a drug offense, we are always looking to work up the chain. And if we publicize those individuals, we publicize those arrests, everybody out there in the community is going to know, okay, that person's been pinched. We can't use them. We can't buy from them. We can't give them anything because now they could be an informant. Or if we publicize some and not the informants, well, then they're going to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why that person got arrested, but why aren't they being publicized? Now, their information's out there. You can't do those types of things. It ruins investigations. And I did hear something about a comment being made about how these drugs are coming into the county. First of all, fentanyl is everywhere. Fentanyl is in everything. It's not just in opiates. It's not just in meth. It's in marijuana. It's been laced in everything. There has to be an understanding. Before we can investigate these, there has to be an understanding it. We don't have people in our county who are cooking meth in pots and bathtubs. That's not happening. We have people who are shipping it in from out of the county. We haven't had people making meth in home labs in like 15, 20 years. It just does not happen. It's far more expensive than just shipping it in. It's been in northwest Wisconsin for years and years and years. They don't even have heroin issues up in northwest Wisconsin because of all that meth coming in. Let's talk a little bit about heroin. I've heard that we have the third most heroin overdose deaths in the state. That's not true. They're talking about per 100,000 people. We're a little bit high in that range, but we're in company of others. We've had in 2021, I believe it was 27 overdose deaths. Washington County, I think, had 25, but Waukesha, Dane County, Milwaukee County, Outagamie County, Brown County, all these other counties are way up above where we're at. I think Milwaukee County was close to 200, and Dane County was in the 100 range. We are not the third or even the fourth or even the fifth highest amount of overdose deaths in Dodge County. That's not true. Per capita, you could make that argument, but again, statistics you can twist in any way you want to. But you have to have an understanding of what's going on. And it's clear, judging from a comment that we got people that are cooking meth in buckets in the bathtub, that my opponent doesn't have an understanding of what's going on in the drug world.
Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt, he is on the ballot alongside Mark Kolker for the Republican nomination for Dodge County Sheriff on the August 9th ballot. We will continue our conversation with Sheriff Schmidt here in just a few minutes.
Join Visiting Angels.
Next, we continue on with community comment.
And our guest here is Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. He is the incumbent in the race for Dodge County Sheriff, as appearing on the August 9th ballot alongside Mark Kolker, the challenger in the race, who was our guest on yesterday's program. here as we continue our conversation, looking at some of the issues that are relevant to voters, and hopefully all of these are. And want to talk a little bit about child safety on the internet and sexual assault in the county. What your opponent is suggesting, having an internet crimes against children task force. This is something we see in other counties. Madison, the state has oversight and whatnot. Is this something that is appropriate in Dodge County? Is this something that we should be looking at?
If I had $321,000 that I could throw at 3 more detectives, I would do it tomorrow. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of analysis through the last several years. Matrix analysis came in and looked at our operations, and they told us we are where we need to be. And outside of that, it'd be difficult to get the county board to go along with additional staff. The other night, I was told that we would make it work. Well, you got to be able to pull from somewhere to add 3 positions to do something like this. But at the same time, are we already doing what he's suggesting? I would argue we are. Could we do more? We can always do more. We can always do more with what we're given from the county board, but we have to be responsible, fiscally responsible with the monies that are given to us. And I don't have $321,000 to throw at 3 additional detectives. However, I can tell you that over the last 4 or 5 years, we have had 50 plus investigations into pornographic information, internet crimes against children that we have been investigating. We have some of those active that we're working on right now with the detectives that we have right now. We are doing what he's claiming that we are not doing, and it's already taking place. There are sexual assault investigations above and beyond that involve adults and minors, and we are investigating those. They're doing a phenomenal job with that, with the staffing that we have. For example, trying to add positions. Earlier this week, I asked the county board if they would transition a position from a detective to a sergeant so that we could have another supervisor in that area, because they're lacking in supervision because it's too much for one lieutenant to manage. They approved that, but originally the Matrix report said you need another detective, or I'm sorry, you need to add a sergeant, not eliminate a detective. The Judicial and Public Protection Committee agreed that we needed to add one, but they said with the climate on the county board, there is no way we're going to be able to get the additional funding to add that additional detective in there to do that type of work. Whether it be the internet crimes against children or sexual assaults or the economic support fraud that is out there, we are doing what we can with what's being provided from the county board, and cutting things from patrol division won't work. You can't take staff away from 911 center. You can't take staff away from the jail. We've done everything we can to negotiate great rates from our federal partners to bring in revenues to offset the cost of the taxpayers, which we do a better job of doing that. Because of that, our cost for the jail is far less than per capita than anywhere else in the state of Wisconsin, but we just don't have those additional funds to add those additional positions, but we're doing the work regardless.
Dodge County has a jail, much like the other 72 counties in Wisconsin. But unlike many, if not all of those counties, Dodge County generates revenue from the federal government by having contract beds. What do you think the role of contract inmates should be ideally in balancing your building and personnel resources with this idea of revenue generation?
First of all, there's only 71 jails in the state. Menominee County does not have a jail.
Oh, okay.
However, the revenues that have been coming in from contract inmates started when the jail was opened in 2001. Originally, it was supposed to be for contract beds from the state of Wisconsin for Department of Corrections, and eventually that morphed into federal inmates. About 3 years ago, we were able to negotiate a price increase from $75 a day up to $86 per day. That's coming due here pretty shortly, and to try and renegotiate that. However, working with the federal government and with getting anything done right now is challenging, and we're already seeing that from the responses we're getting from trying to move forward. But we're going to continue to do that to try and renegotiate some of those costs. We have to continue to do this because it brings down the cost of the jail as a whole to our taxpayers. As I said earlier, we do not have an employment crisis right now in the sheriff's office. In fact, we're getting to a point where we're very stable. We need a few more in the jail yet, but we are not in an employment crisis, so that's not a problem. We're doing very well with recruitment and retention of our staff right now, the other areas to potentially look at, like when it started, you can't go back to the Department of Corrections, first of all, because they aren't doing contracting anymore. They've cut their contract beds significantly in this last budget, and those sheriffs that were asking for 10 to 15 in northern Wisconsin aren't getting them. They aren't available. Furthermore, they only offer $53.26. That's as high as they'll go on a contract. We're making $86 a day with the federal contracts. So any argument that you might want to look at Department of Corrections is not going to work because the state is not going to increase that rate. We're doing really well with where we're at. We just reopened our pod, our H pod right now. That's our pod that we had to close temporarily because of lack of staff, but because we're doing so well, we were able to open it, and we're projected to do really well for the rest of the year. Our partners are already filling us up to where we almost need to be, and things are going in a really positive direction. We're going to try to renegotiate because costs obviously have increased over the last couple of years, especially this last year with inflation. So we certainly want to renegotiate, and we will do that. But at this point, we have to make sure that we get the information into the government, and then they'll actually work with us to get that done. I'll tell you, working with the feds and getting contracts done is a slow process, but that's where we're at.
Currently, the Dodge County Sheriff's Office puts on their social media, their Facebook page, OWI offenders, including those who may have their first or second OWI. Do you do this with sex offenders?
We do publicize some of them, not all of them. There are sex offenders in all areas of our community. I would challenge you to look at the registry. Anybody can look up a sex offender anytime, anywhere they want to see where they're at. It's publicized on the state website. It's already out there, available for you to look up anytime. You can look at their picture. You can find their name. You can already find who is in your neighborhood right now. I also publicize on our website everybody who's in jail. I'm sorry, not on our Facebook page, but on our app. Everybody who's in jail on a county issued offense, their name is on our app. Everybody who we arrest is on our app and can be seen every single day. But what I will tell you is the amount of people whose lives have been impacted by impaired drivers have had enough. Impaired driving has to stop. And when I go to some of my neighboring sheriffs or when I go to out in the public and they tell me that I was up in Green Lake County and at an establishment, and they said, don't drive in Dodge County if you're drunk. That's what I want. I don't want people putting our families at risk. When I drive, when I go to a crash where we have multiple individuals who are killed, when I go to a crash because and a mother is killed and her 11-year-old daughter is killed because we have an impaired driver crossing the center line, that infuriates me. When I go to a crash where we have 3 vehicles, 1 fatality, 7 injuries, and the person who is driving is impaired, that infuriates me. And if you're going to get behind the wheel of a vehicle while impaired, we are going to hold you accountable. And yes, there are other things that you certainly could post. We are trying to reduce the amount of fatal crashes as a result of impaired driving. And I'm sorry if some individuals put themselves in that position, but we are publicizing a public record, always noting that they are innocent until proven guilty. But we are publicizing a public record, which I have seen the very same thing on Daily Dodge. I've seen it on the news channels where before they are convicted, their name and their photograph appears on a news story for being arrested for OWI. So it isn't something that we are doing exclusive to anybody else. News media is doing it as well.
So explain your philosophy, if you would, when it comes to reducing those incidents of drunk and drug driving, your enforcement approach.
Well, my staff works really hard to become educated themselves, not only on drunk driving, alcohol-related driving, but drugged driving. We have a number of our staff who are trained like me as drug recognition experts. We then turn around and train all our staff in what's called ARIDE, Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement, which I'm an instructor of, and several of us are, to teach all of our staff how to detect impaired drivers on the road by drug use. We have one deputy, Scott Anderson, who averages 92.5 over the last 2 years OWIRS. He had 93 one year and 92 the next. So 92.5 OWIRS. That is a ton. That is twice as many as I ever made in a year. But he's out there because he wants to get people off the road and make sure that they know how dangerous it is to get behind the wheel of the car when they are impaired. It is a highlight. It is a focus for our staff, and we're making traffic stops with the goal of removing those people from the highway.
What about traffic safety in general and reducing the number of fatalities in a county? Obviously, we want to get that number down to 0. That's the ideal. What are we doing to get there under your leadership?
Well, over the last 4 or 5 years here, we've had the traffic crash reduction strategy, and a lot of it has been education. We've talked about it quite a bit. We've got our signs that are out. We've got Woodland Fire that now disbanded Woodland Fire, donated 2 speed signs. They're donating 4 more that we can put up. We're doing heavy enforcement based on maps. We got community maps that we're looking at regarding crash data, finding the areas where we've had a lot of crashes, and we're focusing on those areas. 151 and D is a major area. Highway A, 33, W, B, those are major areas. Highway 33 by AY is a major area. Just had a conversation with the State Patrol asking them to step up enforcement in certain areas. And we're really working hard to get people to slow down, because as a reminder, when you slow down, when you drive safely, when you reduce your speed, the chances of you becoming killed reduce. The chances of you become seriously injured are being reduced. In fact, I can announce we got a press release coming here next week. On the 27th, I believe it is, it's going to be National Slow Down Day, where we're going to be out there. I'm going to be out there. We're going to be stopping people for speed. We want people to slow down because we don't want them to get hurt. That is the goal behind it, is to reduce the amount of injuries and fatalities by getting people to slow down, drive safely, put the phones down, stop at stop signs, all those things we've been talking about and trying to educate the public on for so many years.
What would you say the role of local law enforcement is when it comes to addressing the statewide, the nationwide, and really the international issue of human trafficking and sex trafficking?
Our role is to take those cases that or identify hotspots. The problem with human trafficking is much of it is as a result of people being on cell phones, kids being on cell phones, and that's a real education piece. We've interacted with a number of different community organizations that have been really good to work with, Five Stones being one of them. Had some great educational opportunities. But we've done more than just educate. We've attacked those traffickers. We identified prostitution that was going on down in Kleiman and down in Lebanon. We identified human trafficking and violence to women, drug trafficking, prostitution, all going on in these locations. And not only did we arrest individuals, but we worked with the feds. We worked with the other police chiefs. We worked with the other state agencies, and we shut those places down and significantly impacted it. And I think that shows up because when those closed down, the amount of sexual assaults that we have had in subsequent years has significantly decreased. I think we're making a serious impact, but we're not done. We'll never be done, unfortunately, because crime continues. But people in Dodge County and people outside of Dodge County know if you're going to get arrested here, you're going to be held accountable.
We've got 5 minutes left. Do you have 5 minutes of closing statements, or do you want me to squeeze another question in?
You can squeeze another question in.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about taxpayer accountability and your fiscal values as it relates to your personal leadership style.
Fiscally, I'm a fiscal conservative. Budgeting, we've worked really hard over the last 7 years to make sure that we have a responsible budget, that we are actively being good stewards of the budget. In 6 of those 7 years, we've been significantly under budget. 1 year, there was a budget change midway through the year, which we lost a lot of revenue as a result of it, a decision by the county board, and that was the only year that we've had in those 7 years where we haven't been in the black, and a couple of those significantly in the black. We have to provide services. We want to do so in a manner that's responsible, good stewards, and I did hear something the other night about, my opponent has the same experience I had 7 years ago. Well, what you're not saying is I have 7 years of experience there in doing this, and we work really hard at putting together a really good budget, making sure that we are not wasting the county taxpayers' dollars. 7 years of that, including in addition to my Waupun PD time, it's been it's challenging, but we know what to do to make it work. We've worked really well with the county administrator, with the county board, at coming up with great budgets.
Here in the final 3 minutes of the program, feel free to use all 3 minutes or not. Tell our listeners why they should vote for Dale Schmidt as the Republican candidate for Dodge County Sheriff.
You know me. First of all, you know me. You know what I'm going to be doing over the next 4 years. I'm going to be working hard for you. I'm going to be working hard to protect the lives, property, and constitutional rights of you. Over the last couple of years, what potentially can happen when potentially there is government overreach. And you know who is here standing by you, standing by the businesses, making sure that they could open, making sure that we weren't overreaching and violating those constitutional rights. I'm going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to work hard to make a great place to live, work, and play in Dodge County. We're going to make a great place for our employees to work, and we're going to continue to build relationships. You're not going to just see me in a squad car, though. You're going to see me in the community, just like my family. You're going to continue to see improvements on our Rotary projects. You're going to continue to see great things, a shop with cops, and all the other things that we're involved with. You're going to continue to see new things come out, new ideas, innovations. But you are going to get the best possible service from me and my staff as you possibly can. I am very proud, not of my work, but of the work of my staff, of the work they've been able to do. And for anybody to come and diminish that doesn't just hurt me, that hurts all of them. And we can't do that. Our staff work really hard and they do an excellent job. I've never had a group of people work together like we do now, and that's because of the people we've been able to put in place. You can be proud of your sheriff's office. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. I can assure you that on August 9th, if you vote for Dale Schmidt for Dodge County Sheriff, you're going to get a high level of service. You are going to get the best possible service from law enforcement. And I tell you what, our police chiefs and I are working really well together. You're living in one of the best places in the state right now. So I ask for your vote on August 9th. Please get out and support me, Dale Schmidt, for Dodge County Sheriff.
I want to thank you very much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Once again, that is Dale Schmidt. He is the incumbent in the race for Dodge County Sheriff. Partisan primary, August 9th, once again, with the winner advancing to the November election. His opponent, his challenger, Mark Kolker, was our guest on yesterday's program at this exact same time. You're going to be able to find both of these conversations in audio and video right after this program, along with the debate from Wednesday evening at the Beaver Dam Veterans Center featuring both of those candidates. We do want to thank both of our guests for joining us over the course of these 2 days, and also thank those of you out there for tuning in and educating yourself on the issues and the candidates here in advance of the election. That is going to do it for today's Community Comment.